create something that catch attention in a discreet way, makes the wearer discreetly remarkable, so like making the best out of an accident of your life. And by placing it in weird ways, you're aware of what you're doing with your garments. You give value to an old garment that you might be bored of, and then you also might surprise somebody.
Welcome to or welcome back to Fashion Career Stories. My name is Lucas Silva Edward. I am a career strategist and executive coach with more than 10 years of experience in the fashion and luxury industry here in Paris, France. My role is to help you design a successful life and career in one of the most glamorous industries on the planet, but also one of the most competitive. For that reason, I have interviewed fashion professionals at different stages of their career in order to decode their best practices, tactics, and strategies. My hope for you is that you will find in this conversation some inspiration and insight that will help you build your professional journey in the world of fashion and luxury. Today, I have the pleasure to receive Ana Xenia ENE PIENESCU. Ana Xenia is the founder of AXEP, a new type of accessory brand, and I quote, creates fine jewelry independent from the body. Her approach is quite unique because each piece creates a new dialogue between the body, the garment, but also the viewer. What I personally love is that even though her pieces are a way to express yourself, they are first and foremost a way to connect with others. Each piece is elegant, sophisticated, and in some way intellectual, which in the current context of fashion is really refreshing. My advice, visit the website www.axep.co, axep.co, and check the Instagram at accept.axepthat. Today, Ana Xenia and I are going to talk about her journey as a leather goods designer and how she has built her career so far. As you will hear, Ana Xenia is a seasoned professional with experience at Balenciaga and Loewe. She has also experimented with different types of professional format, including freelancing for more than a year in China. Ana Xenia and I went to the same fashion school. She was in design, I was in business. Even though we crossed paths and have a mutual respect for each other's work, we were not close friends. However, when I was interested for a position at Balenciaga, she was the first person I called. When Ana Xenia started her brand, she reached out in order to get my feedback as a fashion editor/buyer. My point is that along the way of your studies or professional journey, you will cross paths with a large diversity of people and you will never know who is going to play an important role in your career. So, no matter what, please act with kindness, humility, and if you can, be of help in somebody else's journey. And with no further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Ana Xenia ENE PIENESCU. Hi, Ana Xenia. How are you?
Hi, I'm very fine, and you?
I'm good. I'm really happy to have you in this podcast. Especially we were talking just a little bit before, and I wanted to have you in this one because I've known you for quite some time, but like following your career from far away, I know you have worked in some of the most beautiful brands on the planet. But besides that, what I love about you, it's really like your spirit. You are really straightforward when you talk to people, even in your ideas. And I wanted to have your point of view on how you have led your career so far. What are the main elements that you believe that drawn you to where you are today? And especially now that you have launched your own brand. And I wanted to understand how your spirit is inside that brand, how you have infused that spirit inside your brand. So this is a lot of questions for the beginning, but I just wanted to tell you why I wanted to have you in this podcast. So if you want just to start, maybe introduce a little bit yourself and what you have done, and then we can continue, see where this podcast goes.
Thank you very much, Luca. It's very nice to talk to you, and I'm very pleased to answer to your podcast. So to introduce myself, so I'm Ana Xenia. My full name is with Ene Pienescu because I'm Greco-Romanian, and I moved to France when I was 8 years old. So I have a very long name, so I shorten it to Ana Xenia. So it's easier for people to understand, especially international. And I started to work in fashion. I started in ready-to-wear because this is like what I've studied. Like I studied ready-to-wear design. And I worked with Margiela. I worked at Hussein Chalayan in London. And then at some point, I also worked in trend offices because for me, it was very important to have a really like wide, like a really open and wide range of, how do you say it in English? In perspective,
point of view or overview.
Yeah, because I didn't want it to limit it to just luxury houses. I was very interested in also the everyday aspect of fashion. I also worked in China in ready-to-wear. Like I was like consulting for a brand that was settled in China, and I did it when I was like very young. Like I did it between like 24 and 27 years old, which was an amazing experience. But after that, I really felt like I always knew that I wanted to be independent, and I always knew I wanted to have my own project and to work on my own project. So at some point, and also like having this experience in London and this like mindset of like studying, it's amazing. It's not like in France. Like in France, you're like do your studies and then you go to work. Like in every other country in the world, you study like in this school and then you go abroad to study in a different school. Like studying is like learning in the same spirit as working. So I offered myself 1 year of like a protected area at EFM, and this is where we met. And after that, like at EFM, I started to work on accessories, which I realized I was like much more relaxed in a way because as fashion was like going at that moment, it wasn't anymore like I was working at Hussein, especially like spending 3 months of research and the importance of the fabric and blah, 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 all those things that now seems a bit like our old ladies, you know, like the beginning of fashion where fabric is important, the relationship with the body, the relationship of getting dressed, getting undressed. So I was feeling there was something changing there, and accessories is still like some sheltered area in fashion because it's where the money is, where they sell a lot, and also like for everyone, even marketing or merchandising people, the accessories are important because of the money, but also they accept the functionality of it. And for me, a garment, like a clothing piece, as well as an accessory, is something functional. But today, as fashion goes, it's not functional, it's image and blah, blah, blah. A bag has to be functional, the shoes has to be functional in some ways. So for me, so I was more drawn to that. I was like, okay, I can have more fun. So after EFM, I started, like, I did an internship at Cartier, and then I started at Balenciaga with Alexander Wang at the beginning, and then with Demna. And after I joined Loewe with Jonathan Anderson, which was the perfect like combination for me in terms of positioning of those two brands. And always having in mind that I want to work on my own project because I always been that independent person, and I also always wanted to have fun with my own rules and my own values. So I've been observing all these different fields like luxury, high street, accessories, garments, and then I wanted to combine those two. So that's why my brand, I'm doing accessories for garments. It's really
okay.
Aspects in one.
And before we go to your own brand, because there is a lot of it to say, I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit. And do you remember when that joy or passion about fashion or creation sparked in your life? When is kind of the origin stories of that side?
So I'm kind of like very privileged from the beginning because my parents, both of them, they are architects. So I've been always like, they always like brought me like in every city we are going, they always show me like building stuff, we went to exhibitions, So in that matter, I know that I'm very privileged because some other people, they don't have it, but they build it by themselves. So I'm always very admirative. So I always knew that I wanted to create something. I was drawing a lot. And I remember at school, I didn't really want it, like in the first thing, I wanted to be interior designer because I was going with my parents at their friends' places. Because since we moved here in France, I was always with my parents. They didn't like let me with, I don't know, with new people to keep you, or I don't know. They always brought me with them. So I spent a lot of time among adults, and I always spent a lot of time observing those adults discuss the conversation. And when I was bored, I started to look at their place, and I was like thinking, how can I change it? And I was going back home, and I started to draw from Habitat catalog or IKEA, and like doing Photoshop just by drawing. Like I was doing Photoshop with my hand, like drawing everything and rearranging their interiors.
So directly on the images?
No. I was like drawing. I was like taking like in front of me. I had like inspiration, IKEA, and then I was drawing because I think this was also coming from my parents, like seeing them drawing spaces. Then I draw like perspective. Like I was redrawing their house, like all the rooms. I think like the bathroom, and then I was filling it with my design inspired from IKEA and Habitat. And I was also doing it when I was like really young, like in Romania. I was drawing like the different step of transformation of a character. So it was like, I don't know, like a person like living in the street, and like, I don't know, like she wasn't calm, the like real child things, you know, like she had a dirty dress. And then I was drawing the different step for her to become clean. And I remember that in the end, I was like, but now it's a bit boring. So I always try to keep it's not like extra makeover, you know, I wasn't like redoing everything. I kept like the characteristics, but I was like drawing all those different steps. And then in like at school, like when I was studying, I still keep on drawing. At school, they always say like, you shouldn't draw, you should listen to the teacher. So I tried it, but then I realized I was like making jokes with my friends. So in order not to make jokes with my friends and to be focused on what the teacher was saying, I was like continuously drawing. And the easiest thing at that age, I don't know, 14, 16, you draw like a girl dressed in a dress, or, you know, like you draw things that keep your mind busy while listening. And then I really knew I wanted to do something related with drawing and with design. And I think, and after like having this like interior design career by myself, then I was like, no, I want to do something more connected with the body, the movement, like something more sensitive, like, and also like sensual. So that's how I like started.
So that's amazing. Yeah, really. So your starting point is really space and interior, and then you went to more like body, more sensuality, more on the person. But the connecting dots, it's the drawing. That's the craft that led you to more creation, if I understand well.
Yeah, now I realize it's also like it's really like having something that exists already and transforming it.
Yeah, without losing what make the taste to not make it boring, if I understand well. It's like how you keep that. Yeah. It's okay. So that's an amazing process. And how did you choose like what you will study and where you decided to study? What was kind of the criteria that you used at that moment to say, okay?
Yeah, that for me, like, you had always those fairs in Paris, like when I did like social economics baccalaureate. And I remember that they're always asking us, like, what do you want to do in life? So I was always like, everybody wanted to be a doctor, I don't know, accountant, I don't know, marketing, something. And me, I was like, and for fashion. So they didn't really know where to guide me. They were like, we don't know. This is something like crazy artistic stuff. We don't know, which is not artistic, by the way. So then my parents, they were very nice because they always like brought me to those fairs, like you want to go here, you want to go there. And then at those fairs, I remember I passed by like S1E4, and I was like, oh my God, that's so boring. Like it's so formal. I was like, oh, this is not what I want to do. Like I already have it in like lycée and like high school, you know, like. So, and then I passed by Chardon-Savart, which is like, it was this like small French school, like very family spirit in Paris. I didn't know anything about it. And then I saw like they were very crafty and they were like very chill. They were a bit in the spirit of my primary school. When I arrived in France, I was to a primary school it's called Vitruve, École Vitruve. It's in the 20s. And it's the spirit of Montessori. So we didn't have books. We didn't have grades. We weren't judged. We were just like brought to life by some other person that were giving us the tools to use it by ourselves. So I felt the same with the director of the boss of Chardon Savard. He had this like cool vibe. I think like he was smelling cigarettes, something like this. And there were a lot of drawing. He was like, yeah, we are here to have fun, basically. So I was like, okay, that's it. I really choose fun.
Okay. So what I hear from you and what I think is really interesting is like you knew yourself super well to know what type of environment would be the most appropriate for you. And that's kind of, if I understand, what draw you to one school more than the other, because in Chardon, you knew that you might be able like to be more free, experiment, and not, there is not that judgment part as maybe you feel it in other way. Yeah. Okay. So that's and what did you, at the end, at that school, how long did you stay there? And what would you say are the key learnings that you have there that you keep with you now?
I think it was 2 years, 3 years, 2 years maybe. I don't remember exactly now. So it was I was very happy because after lycée, like after high school, I think in high school, I was very relieved, to finally be able to draw most of the time. We still had, like I did BTS. I still was a bit like formal, like BTS is like this like state diploma. So I did the BTS, so I was like, we still have mathematics and physics, and I was like, accountant, I was like, why? And also like, I learned a lot. I had a lot of time to develop like my first like design ideas. I didn't really understood all those like accountancy classes, the physics class. I understood them when I had to pass the test because I was like, physics, okay, it's for the materials, dyeing, d'accord. So voilà, mathematics, we use like P and I use it sometimes when you do patterns, so it's useful. But nobody really told you like, this is the purpose of it, you know? It was still like those lessons that Chardon Savard are a bit French in that way, like you have to do it and that's it, it's important, you know? And then, only things like, for example, accountancy, you say that, like comptabilité. Now I realize it would have been much more important, not the accountancy itself, but I know like from like, because after I like travel, I went to like different school, like in abroad, from the beginning, they say like fashion is a business, fashion is not art, and you should learn like by what other people did in the past in terms of fashion. And you should also consider that you're starting in a business, so you should know the basics of the business. In Chardon Savard, it's very nice for 2 years. It was just after the baccalaureate. I was 18, so ça va, it's cute. That's why also after I went to EFM, I was like, I still need to focus on something more like consistent. Because Chardon Savard is very like, you're the creative, you do. It's a bit like Beaux-Arts. It's like, I don't know, like architecture school in France, like design school in France, interior design, everything. It's a bit like crafty, and like you're the artist and you create with your hands some like weird shape made out of paper, sink in water, you know, like papier mâché.
Yeah.
It was good for those 2 years. After, I think it should be like, I should have maybe like gone like in Belgium or in England to have something where somebody really considered this is a business. So you should be aware of that. Don't, you know, because after you leave school and you're like, nobody's waiting for me. And we are not just creating nice shapes forever.
It's true. It's kind of, you discover the reality of, we're here to make business and money and you need to produce something that is going to be useful for the brand or even for your own business. And if you're just in your mind, in your world, creating, as you say, weird shapes is not going to cut it for a long time. So,
can combine both, because I don't think we are here to make money and make business. Like, this is somebody else decided it because they took over so much. So we are really not here to make money and make business. We are mostly here to have fun, because like it's short and we all gonna die at some point. So let's have fun and not make money and business, because nobody cares when we're gonna be dead. So we are mostly here to have fun and have those ideas in our mind, but also be like realistic and pragmatic. And this, I think it's important to have in mind. Like, I like designers are not like dreamers. You are very pragmatic. You believe you're a dreamer because everybody tells you, like, you know. So have those amazing ideas, but learn how to use them, because you're doing it for other people, as you said. Like, I'm not an artist. Like, I don't create out of my inspiration to show it to someone who looks from a distance. It's something that people will wear. It's functional. It should be amazing, crazy. You can have like different aspects, but it's still like for other people.
Okay. So if I understand well, from those 2 years, you learn kind of more creativity, you experience a lot. And then you decided to go abroad to have that more like business, or at least realistic way of thinking. And so where did you go to learn that, and what kind of the learnings there from those places?
Like, straight after Charbon Sava, so I worked for a bit at Margiela, because this was like, of course, like it was my dream, like, it's so interesting. There I did, like, I work also like at the how do you call it, like the business side. So I was a bit like, shit, like this is not amazing, because there you could do like a bit of everything, you know. It was still quite small, but at the same time I was like, well, at the same time I'm always like, I have like a big resilience kind of. So I was like, okay, bon, I'm like in the business side, okay, I will learn something completely different. Then at the same time I was like also working at the atelier artisanal, where they were like painting on shoes and on t-shirts. So it was really like, again, like a really nice combination. It's very opposite.
Yeah.
So I was also seeing how the business is it's brought to life. I also like saw how Martin Margiela was really not about, I mean, he was a very good businessman, but he was very much like, I don't care about this, but he knew how to surround himself with people who are like, okay, we're gonna make this like a business, like a brand.
Yeah.
And then I think I didn't want it to go straight to school. I was very curious about like working in a work environment. So after Margiela, I started like in this trend office, because this was the opportunity at that time. I worked for a little time. Then I've seen something that I really didn't like people taking themselves too seriously and be a bit pretentious. So I was a bit disappointed. And also working already how you work later, like fast, you know, like you just photocopy ideas. So I was a bit like, I was still like dreaming of like creating new stuff. And I had this opportunity to work in China. So for me, like my learning after school was more through work directly, which I think was very important. If you're ready for that, and if you're open to try those new experiences. Because when I was traveling to China, I was really like, I don't know what to expect. Like, they asked me come there, and they really have this American, like, they're very like capitalist in their way of making business. It's like, you can do it no matter your age. It's not like France. Like, you should have 40 years or be 40, have the experience of somebody being 60, 60, and still be sexy, you know, like.
Yeah.
So you should combine all those, which is impossible. In the US, I think, and in China, they are like, if you can do the job, no matter who you are, what you did, come do. So I traveled there, and then they were like, yeah, you would be like the designer for the brand. Like, okay. I was like super surprised. And then I stayed there for 3 months, and I really didn't want it to copy. Having this experience from this like first trend office where I've been working, I was like, I'm not gonna just like photocopy ideas. Also because coming from a different country in France, I always been very aware of these judgments, of the judgmental aspect that you can sometimes have. And I was very aware of like this kind of like, like racism or like preconceived ideas, to say it more in a diplomat way, like Chinese people copy. So I was like, okay, now I'm working with them. It's my responsibility to prove the world that they are not copying. which I understood later, that many designers go to China, they are paid a lot of money, and then it's easy if you're like if you're an experienced designer to photocopy ideas. You know how to photocopy it fast, and it's okay. Like you copy, they don't know, they put you there, they pay you a lot of money, voilà. So I was like working my ass to have like new ideas, and which was like super tiring. Like I was like drawing and working all the time. But I really wanted to prove that no, like they trusted me and I'm going to bring them something new. So I worked there for 2 years. And at the end, when I left, because still like it was very hard. And at the end, I realized it's also very tiring to have new ideas for a brand all the time. That's why you end up photocopying. Like then you know how to balance, have photocopy, have new ideas. When I left, I checked like I wanted to be like very clever, so I checked for like, how to say the citation, like quotes to tell them why am I leaving. And I was still very Occidental in that mind. Like I was like, I'm not copying. So in the end, if I have to copy, I have to leave. And I was like looking for quotes from Confucius because I was like quotes that make sense. And there was one, I don't remember exactly, but one that was saying, like Confucius was saying, you take for example, I take something from your place, Luca, I bring it to mine, and on the way of taking it, I transform it, and then it will become something new by the transformation. And I was like, fuck me, like, okay. So this is, okay, Asian mindset, like, it's not the idea of copying, it's not something bad like in France, like in Europe or in Occidental world, like, we create. I'm God's the creator, You transform things. And to be honest, like even in Occidental world, like you always you're inspired by something, it passes in your eyes, in your brain, and then you recreate it in a different way. And it will become something new just by this transformation from one person to the other. So I learned something very essential there that then I find at Balenciaga too.
Okay. Now that's an amazing quote that encapsulates how we see the world in different places. And I think thank you for sharing that, because it's true here in Occident, we have that idea like China copies, even though now we see that they're innovating in a lot of ways too. But there is a moment when you start that you need to copy, but at the end, it's not so much the copy that matters. It's how you transform that to make it something different, new and excited. And after that, there is degrees of transformation, I imagine, that make it more like a new product or kind of a really similar things. But in the mindset, it is different. So that was a great lesson.
No, I remember also I've seen like 2 exhibitions that were very important to me. Like I've seen one exhibition about Yohji Yamamoto and another one about Dries Van Noten, where they were showing their inspiration. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Because in general, all exhibition about designers, artists is like, see, this is my art. I created it. As if you're by yourself in your room with your pen and then, voila. Which is impossible. It's also a lot of pressure. Like, and I find it so generous and so like honest. Like they always show like, I'm inspired by this. And then when you see where they brought it, you're like, wow, it's still amazing,
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. You're just like, hey, I'm inspired by things.
No, it's true. It's amazing how inspiration can work in so many different ways. And as you said, we don't live in a own world. We live in connection with others, and it is true for creating garments or accessories, or it is true to creating your own lives or career. So this is kind of almost the point of this podcast. Is how I get inspired. I'm not going to copy the path of somebody, but let's see what I can take and transform it along the way on my own journey to see if I can get to another result or something different. So it is great. Before we move on a little bit on the rest of your journey, I just wanted to kind of circle back to what you did, like on the business side of Margiela. What was the position, just to understand?
It was I was like assisting everyone there that was like preparing in the showroom preparation.
Okay.
It was mostly like I was like very young, so I was like mainly like observing and helping a bit everyone. And as I was saying, I think at that time there were still like 80 people there, so it was like super small. So I was like helping, like I was also working with the guy that I met after at Loewe. So, and yeah, it was like it was very interesting. And yeah, I was mainly like helping them because yeah, I was like the showroom preparation, the sales preparation. I was assisting them in the showroom sales.
Okay, and would you say that that learning was useful for you in after to kind of understand the other side of the business besides the creative sides, or was it just something you said like, okay, it's just not for me? And
at that time, I was still a bit blurred. Like it was really the beginning. So when you start, I mean, now when I have interns, I'm like they understand everything, you know. And then I forget that when you start, you're like, my first like job, or like it's new, oh la la, I'm not Margiela, like just like super excited. So you're like kind of blurry, like some things go into your brain, but then you think about them like years later, you know.
Yeah.
You're just like, fashion, yes, fashion week, you know. You're just excited about that. So no, I think it was important to see that there is something behind. This was the first thing that I noticed. There is something behind. There are some people, but yeah, there it was nice because it was small, so they were really like in that spirit. Now I think people like working for big companies where they are like massive. I don't know, like in Vuitton, they are not all like, we love Nicolas Guesquière, you know, and we love the style. It's a job. So there it was nice in that aspect, like to be infused with the brand. Then I also work like as a part-time job during my life. I also work for like as a showroom assistant, or like as a dresser during showrooms. So there I could also observe, for example, for Yohji Yamamoto. So up there I was observing the salesperson, and I understand like the buyers comes with a budget, and the seller need to sell to him for this budget. So I was still observing all these different aspects. It was kind of tiring. Like they were like not fighting, but they were like prices at the end, like he sold for the most money, or I don't know, like so. It was, yeah, I was like, it's not for me, but it's interesting. And I would like to understand that, because if I understand that if I want to do something by myself, I need to be more aware of that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, understand how a buyer or salesperson think, and beyond the fact that a product is beautiful or well made, it's like, okay, how it goes into a shop, who are the customer behind, what price point are we hitting?
Yeah.
How it's all of that goes into the one collection, and how a buyer can get the full collection and not only like luxury product that people won't buy. So it is interesting to have at least an understanding of that, just to, as you say, keep it in the back of your head, kind of, and know that it exists.
Yeah.
And going back to the China 2 years experience, what would be like the key learnings there as a designer? Well,
I think this is the main thing is like copying, like just the cultural difference. So I think it's the main learning. And the other one is like, you cannot, like if you work for a brand, you need to mix a bit like genuine and like, I mean, always inspired by something else ideas, and not, I mean, I still don't believe in the like pure photocopy of something, but you need to combine new ideas with something that comes from somewhere more directly. And by adding details and working on the details, you can bring it somewhere else. But saying that, I can do this in accessories. I think like for like clothing or ready to wear, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I really believe in the way that I was working at Hussein with those amazing like people there, and pattern makers who are like truly like geniuses, like Izumi and Rio, like my two friends were working there, were like draping. Like you just take the fabric and you drape, and you let yourself be surprised by the material, and you work with the material on a stockman, and then you create something new out of your relationship with the material. So I still believe this is very important, and this is what I praise in fashion, in ready to wear. For accessories, like it's like the wheel, you know, like a bag is like a wheel, like you cannot make it. I mean, you can make it square. It can be fun for like 1 month to drive this like car with square wheels, but after a while you're gonna be bored.
Yeah, it has to be useful.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so after China, did you went straight to Yushen Shalayan, or it was there is a step before that?
I came back to Paris. I needed 1 year to reset a bit because I was saying I was like working a lot, I was traveling a lot, I was going back and forth. So I really needed like to sit down and to work again on something creative by myself, because I was a bit like dry from giving all my ideas as I wanted to have this, like to convince the world that we aren't copying. So I was like having just new ideas. So I needed to sit down, and so I took 1 year like to like live. I mean, to take a flat with my best friend, to live my independent life with the money I was like earning in China. So I was like enjoying life, going out, having fun, like everything I couldn't really do because I was working so much. And also concentrating on a personal project, like trying to apply to contests, knitting, like doing creative things for myself, like out of my own ideas, and more freely creating. And after a while, of course, I needed to find a job. So I started to work for a new trend office where I find like a new spirit of like people who are like inspired by exhibition, who could travel the world, who have always those privilege of being like inspired by things, but then who had to bring it to the to high street, to like brands who are like selling a lot, and without despising those brands and without despising this like bringing those ideas to it's not, yeah, it's like vulgarization, but not in a bad way. Like, okay, you're inspired by Vasarely, how can you do it's not the best example, but like like
Oh, you translate, yes, something that you see to for a brand that it's going to be more mainstream, and
exactly.
yeah, what are the 1 or 2 elements that you can take from there?
For example, like this kind of career in fashion, in luxury, it's kind of despised because it's like, we don't care. This is mass market. And again, like I had a bit the same feeling as working for China. It's like there are certain things good we consider good and certain things we consider bad. Well, like in my opinion, it's like, well, those people are really selling, and this is how people are dressed mostly in the street. So why should we despise some people? You know, like luxury is something like, I mean, today luxury is also something very weird. I don't know why it's still called luxury sometimes, but it's something that it costs a lot. So, like, not everyone is interested in paying so much for a bag, a t-shirt. So I think it's very interesting. And also it's very interesting because then in those trend office, you need to like research a lot. Like I was like fucking researching all the time in design, food, shoes, garments, And also the people I was working there, I learned so much to put references on images. So I knew where I took the images, not just like you go on Pinterest and you're like, I like this image, boom. You know where this image comes. I learned so much. I learned about so many designers, so many fashion designers, so many interior designers, so many food designers, so many things that I didn't know before because I was always like naming the picture I was like taking. Again, in the same idea, like you're not like stealing from those people. You're just like taking it and transforming it, but you should know where it comes from. And you should, in order for your brain to function, in order to be like, oh, I like this image. I like this designer. Let's research more if I have time or if I'm interested, you know? So it's like learning. It's like, yeah, constant learning.
And how do you, in a more pragmatical way, if you had to advise, somebody that's starting and want to be in that phase of researching, understanding kind of the world, the trends, what would you say that are the best practice for somebody who even not work in a trend agency, but even for themselves? What would be the best practice for them?
I think it's exactly that. It's like you practice, so you do by yourself a lot, and you do for yourself in the beginning. So you're like, okay, I've seen this, I want to try. It's not like nothing can stop you from doing, like, I mean, yeah, there are many things that can stop you from doing. I don't know. You have many brother and sister. You have a big family, small house. You don't have time. I don't know. Like there are many things that can stop you. But if you can, you just try out of anything that you can and find ideas and always be like free enough to consider that you have the right to try, and always have fun, because I mean, yeah, we are doing something that is fun, so have fun, trust yourself. Don't think about yourself. Like I'm always saying, like it make me laugh, all my interns, that then, because I also don't call them interns, I'm like assistants, and I'm like, you're a designer, because they're like, I'm an intern. I'm like, no, you're a designer who starts, like, no, but I'm not a designer. Because I really don't believe in this bullshit of like junior designer, senior designer, head of director. So I'm always joking around it, You should never consider that somebody else put a title on your head, I mean, of course you should have respect. And when you start, you know less things that somebody who's like, I don't know, 50 years old, but you also know something that this person doesn't know. So it's always about the exchange. So trust yourself, have confidence. Don't try to please somebody. When you work for a brand, you work for that brand, of course, and you should have this in mind, and you should go in that direction, like working for Balenciaga or Loewe. I was never working for myself, but I was doing things for myself. I was always like, what's my interest? How can I have fun? And if I have fun, I will convince the other person. Or if I don't convince this other person, we will at least have a conversation. And if I haven't convinced her, I would have deconvinced myself, I don't know, somehow. Or I will be more convinced, but I will be, okay, we don't agree on that. So next time I know what to offer, I know what to propose, so you're learning. So this trust yourself.
It's a great advice. It's something I often say too, is like, to people entering in the industry, that they have to believe that sometimes they know more about some topics that the person in front of them have more experience. But in terms of knowledge, they might know more about, I don't know, sustainability, social media, new artists that are upcoming, subcultures, whatever, because those are the interests they have, and because of the age difference, or because they come from a different type of culture. So, as you say, knowledge could be like, it's really vast. Okay, experience that it's useful in a certain context here in a brand. Okay, that's something that you're going to learn along the way, and you should kind of be humble and learn from others. But always remember that you bring something on the table as well. And and there is something that I wanted to highlight that had come up often when you express, is the fact to have fun. Is that something that do you know where it comes from? Is that from your education, your parents? Where that idea of having fun come from?
Yeah, I think like my parents make a lot of jokes. We make a lot of jokes with my parents. My grandma, because I spend more time with her, she was like super fun. She also make a lot of fun. She never like took herself seriously. I mean, so I always have this, at Vivre, at the school, we are always like playing characters, having fun too. Then, yeah, so I think, I realized like, I don't know, like, I never like to, I don't know if I complain. I'm like, I always analyze a lot too much, like everything, like I suranalyze. But I always want to have fun, and I never been like, like Monday morning when you arrive in the office and I'm like, how are you? Oh, like a Monday. I'm like, like, and we wait for Friday. And Friday, how are you? Thanks God it's the weekend. I'm like, okay, and thanks God, like tomorrow we are dying, so this whole shit is like done,
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it's fun, like take different road to go to work every day, like try something different every day. So, and I think it's very important, especially because when I was, for example, at high school, I was curious, so I was interested, and I find it fun. Like, I don't know, like history, geography, they were like matters that didn't interest me, but not because they were like not interesting, because the teacher wasn't interesting. Because I had like a social economic teacher which made connection to real life, a history teacher who made connection to real life, to actuality. So as a child, you need to understand why you're studying something. It's not that me, the grown up, I give you this and take, eat. You're like, why, And then you're forced. So at some point you do it, but you hate it. Me, I was lucky enough to have many teachers that were super good pedagogues and who explain us why. So I was like interested at school, but I knew that I wanted more freedom and be out of this like judgmental system where we have grades and, like. So it was very important to me. I want to do something artistic, like creative at least, and drawing, because there is more freedom and you can speak more your mind. And then working in fashion, I worked a lot. Sometimes it was very hard, but I always wanted to have fun. And I also started to observe as it gets more serious and you grow up, you're more grown up. You're like, you should become serious now. And like, as a grown up, And I'm like, no. And also in fashion, the more responsibility you have, the less fun I think people have sometimes. And now I'm very happy because I had like a lot of fun at Balenciaga, at Loewe. Even if sometimes it was very hard, I realized that I had a lot of fun. But I'm very happy to be out also because I can really insist on this aspect of fun, which is not like superficial to me. It's really like, because I still see people working, saying, I worked a lot and I'm so tired and I have no life and I have no weekend and I worked again. And I'm like, whoa, guys, like just, like it's important, but it's not that important.
Yeah. No, it is true. And it is amazing to hear you about how you see life. It's about the fun and the joy that whatever you do brings into your life. And always to keep that in mind, because as you said, the more grown up we become, the more serious we become. And sometimes we forget that life is about being surprised, that being like, there is a lot of discovery in it. And sometimes the burden of life can take a toll on that, and it's sometimes hard to kind of inspire ourselves in the day-to-day because of the reason, especially in fashion, that, as you were mentioned, can take a lot of time and energy in your life. And it is a really strong skill to be able to remember the pleasure and the fun that you are seeking doing that. And if you're not having it, maybe to listen to yourself and say, okay, if it's not in this place, maybe there is another place I can find that fun, and re-energize myself.
Yeah, like there is a quote like, you're not a tree, so you can move. It's always like, move on the side. Like if you're not having fun there, you can move.
Yeah, you can move.
If you can.
Before going to a little bit more on Balenciaga and Loewe, that I think it feels that were key experiences. What do you believe your background? You say your parents were from Romania and Greece, if I remember well. What do you think those backgrounds brought to you in terms of value, culture, the way you see the world, and how they impact your life and your choices?
But it has a lot of impact, and I think mostly because we are like immigrants, so we moved here. So then I always have this like double vision of life. Also because I was very young when I came here, and I come from a culture that is still like, it's more Oriental in some ways, and I come from a part of the world which is often seen like, recently I was like talking with a guy and he was like, I've been there. It's really like it was, because it was back in the 2000s, or I don't know, like it was really the Middle Age. And I was like, well, no, it was the 10th century, but it didn't evolve in the same way as it did here. So I always had like, when I came here, I didn't have the feeling that I was coming, like if you live in your country forever, you see it from this perspective. Moving in another country, you realize that other people are observing you and having a judgment on you from their perspective. And then I came here and I was like, okay, Romania is poor. Okay, this, okay, that. Okay, boom. Of course, when you're in Romania, you look and you say, Occidental countries are amazing. Look, in France, it's so clean and it's so rich and those people there must be all happy. And then also by coming here, you're like, well, wait, it's not that amazing. But of course, here you have like freedom, democracy, like many things that are very important. And you also look at other people saying, oh, look at them, poor them. But I'm still very aware that they are more poor than me. See how nice it is. Me, I'm here. I'm fine. Oh no, I'm aware of that. And so it brought me that double vision, also that sensitivity to never like consider somebody else only from my perspective. As I was saying, like Chinese people are copying. I was like, wait, why people are saying that? Because also me growing up here, I was like, I start to have like stereotype ideas. Then I was like, wait, why? Like question yourself, like and also Romania, because it was communist, of course. Like, so my parents were against the communism at that time there. I mean, at the time. Yeah, it's not that now they are pro or cons, but you see, like, you need to have some balance in life. So they were like against, and they wanted to have like freedom of speech, and also always, when you hear an information, process it through your own brain and with your own knowledge. So always doubt, which for my parents, it's exaggerated. They always doubt everything, and they always wait, why they are saying that? No, it must be this. And so it's like, wow, it's like very tiring for me. Sometimes I wish I just like was born in Périgord, and I'm like, oh yeah, I believe everything people say to me, it's easy. Like, okay, they are right. So, but at the same time, I like very much this exercise, and I'm very trained to that. Ah, you're saying that? Wait, why? Like, as I was training for China. Okay, I might believe that they copy, but why? What is their culture? Why do people say that? Da, da, da. Try to think for yourself. I mean, think for yourself. Question things for yourself, see with your own knowledge and what you've seen here and there, and build a mindset that is personal. So this is one of the main things that my parents gave me. And also in terms of, sorry, I'm a bit long, but there are like two things very important.
No, it's perfect. Go ahead.
It's this thing of like think by yourself. We have this like independent mind. And in Romania, it's something that we go back there now because we want to go back to the countryside to milk our own cows, So it was a culture because it was so like against Western, like where like we didn't have like pre-made products so much. Like you are bringing your bottles back to the shop. If I was eating a cake, it was my grandma or my mom who was baking this cake. Like we didn't have all those like surgelé, like frozen product, all those like that comes from a society that goes fast, that needs to be efficient. It was more laid down. So also like my parents, everything that is like made, like every artifact, my dad is always looking at it and being like, somebody made it, like a cup of coffee, like a plastic fork. He's like, look, you imagine the machine behind it that needed to make this fork. So I'm like, again, like I would like to not see it. But at the same time, I find it very important because behind that plastic fork that for you it's so easy to use, there is a big machine that costs a lot of money, and there is probably a man, because there are not robots everywhere, like there is a man who's working every day, waking up early in the morning for you in the end to use the fork for 2 seconds and throw it away. So in my way of designing, I'm very conscious of it, and more saying about that is not about sustainability, which in my opinion, it's a word that we use it and we put it everywhere. It's more like having the good, like bon sens, like good, right sense, or I don't know how to say in English, but it's like everything that we are using has been thought, made, and created by someone. So when I design something, I'm like, it should have that's why I'm talking about this functionality, because you need to use it for a long time. Like in Romania, you buy something, you keep it for a long time, and you think about it when you buy it. It was a less consumption in society back then. Now, like everything changed. But it's being aware and think for yourself.
And it's amazing how all of that has shaped your way of designing, as you were saying, or even when you've been talking about the different choices regarding China or regarding the trends forecasting agency. It feels that because you have that way of thinking from your parents and your culture and your experience, you don't dismiss anything. You always ask yourself, okay, what is that? Why is it that way? Is that interesting? Can I learn something from there? Or always kind of challenging your way of your perspective, as you were saying, your point of view, and how that can inform new ways of inspiration, creation, way of designing your own life. So it is really interesting to understand where it comes from, because it put a light on all the choices you have done so far. And I would say in terms of insights, they are super interesting for somebody who is starting, because now fashion is everywhere in the world, to ask themselves, okay, what my culture can bring to the fashion conversation? What can I learn to go work or study in another country? Not so much to receive everything from the Occident world, as you were saying, but maybe to, rebalance, recontrast, and, for example, the theme of sustainability. maybe it's not so much about consuming less. It's about how we consume just by the way we think about things. Even just the consumption of the mind of any product is like, okay, I see that. Let's see how far I can go to understand how that product has been made and how that way of thinking can change my way of consuming things or using things, or in terms of usage, if I am a designer. What are the best material? What are the best craftsmanships that are going to bring that to life? So I like it's more a way of being that indicate a way of doing things after. So it's really interesting.
It's really like understanding what you are doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So thank you for sharing that and how is that impacted your life. And so coming back to you were saying after you went to Balenciaga and Loewe. So how were those experiences after, knitwear, China, because that was kind of big companies. Well, how was the experience and what did you learn over there?
But first I was kind of afraid when I started at Balenciaga because it was my first CDD, because before I always work in freelance. So at Balenciaga, it was CDD, so everybody was super excited for me, oh, that's so cool, a CDD, and eventually it can turn out in a CDI, and me, I was very scared, oh, I don't know, I will have ticket restaurant, this is awful, I will have RTT, photocopier, and I was I don't want all those things. But then my ex at the time, he told me yeah, but you can always leave, so I was oh, okay, that's fine. So I had I was seeing a way to escape, so I was okay. So then for me, first of all, it was, I was very happy because I really wanted to work for Balenciaga. I was the the head designer for bags at that time there. We had a really good relationship, so it was really amazing because we had a lot of fun. And he really let me be who I am. So he was okay, do your things, be happy, enjoy. It was very inspiring to work with him. And then, so first I was happy to work for Balenciaga, happy to work with him, with Donatien. And then second thing for me, it was a new experiment in a company, with a CDD, which was a CDD at the time, and then a CDD, a long-term contract. And I was okay, now I will experiment. How is it to work in a company under a contract? So I stayed there for 5 years. I started with Alexander Wang, which I didn't have so much in common in terms of aesthetics, but it was interesting because we had to develop so much, because Alexander, I think he was so excited to be in France, couture, shalala, baguette and les ateliers le sage and blah, blah, blah. So it was amazing because we were doing so much. And I was also super excited to start to work for Balenciaga. So I was working night and day and being very involved. And also by having this very good relationship with Donatien, I was working for myself, but I wanted to work also for him, to show him that I'm very motivated and I'm very happy that he trusted me and da, da, da. And after when Demna came, I was much more relaxed because we all came from, we both came from the same background, Margiela and Mana. So this was my language, my vocabulary. So, and he also understood what I was starting to do at that time, because I say that I wanted to work in a field where I could draw, but I didn't like to draw bags because I was I don't want to draw bags. This is boring. Because I never liked, I had this super I don't know, mindset that I'm always no. Because people were oh, you know how to draw so well. And I was well, I'm not here to draw. You're here to design something interesting. So even if you don't know how to draw, so this is also something important to say. Don't put your pressure on you. I don't know how to draw. We are not at Le Louvre. You're not Leonardo da Vinci. You just need to express an idea with the right proportion for somebody else to understand. But more than that, just do sketch a lot by hand, by Illustrator, whatever you want. But also, so what I was starting to do at that point was working as I was working in ready to wear, and I was working at Hussein, by draping. So in bags is working already with existing materials and doing mock-ups. So I was working in 3D directly with mock-ups, with materials. Just as I was saying before, to let the material surprise myself too. Because for me, a design is something that has to be, you need to touch it. So just me in front of a paper, a white paper with my pen, or in front of my computer, like working on Illustrator, you get so like, whoa, you have a lot of pressure. It's not very exciting. It's not very fun. So I started to work with mock-ups, and I was very lucky because Demna understood that way of working also. So I could provide him with so many maquettes, with so many colors, with so many like new materials. So it was so interesting and so nice for me. And he was also like very chill at that time. So we talked, like Donatien let me present my work directly to him, which is also very important because it also helps to understand how an artistic director is working, what does he want, what does he need, how do you have to behave during a meeting, so it was very nice. And then the team there is amazing because they have it very good at Balenciaga in my opinion, very good that they bring people from everywhere. Then of course they become a bit like Balenciaga, but that they are very like unique characters that comes from so many places in the world. So that was like super interesting.
And for those who don't understand how a studio works, how does it work in terms of hierarchy, designers, departments? Because you said, I had the opportunity to talk directly to them, introduce my ideas, just to have an idea of how does it work.
So in general, so you have like separated between the, the business aspect, like the executive side and the creative side. And then you have like you have the big studio, and then you have ready-to-wear studio, which group the most people, I would say, depending on the houses. From what I know at Balenciaga, like the ready-to-wear studio, it's very big. Then inside you have print, you have the people who are doing flou, like coats, jacket, pants, denim, Then you have the shoe department, which is also quite like important, and then you have the ready-to-wear, the accessories like the leather goods area. Then you have the graphic design, and then for all those different areas, you have the like fabric, like material research, material developers, and then for ready-to-wear or for accessories, sometimes you have an in-house studio of like a workshop. Like atelier where you go and then they make things for you directly. You can do maquette, you can do the mock-ups yourself, and then you share with them, or you do drawings and you bring to them. Most of the time for accessories, it's done in Italy. So we don't have an in-house atelier. That's why I also like started to do like mock-ups myself, because I needed to have a result right now, and sometimes it takes a long time to do the mock-ups. So I wanted to have something to present to them now, and not just drawing or like, I have this like salpa, because this is the material. Like salpa is the material you use to make mock-ups, and it's gray and it's boring, or white and it's boring. And then you have the artistic director, who most of the time have a person like a right hand who's helping him. And then, in every categories, you have a designer, directrice de studio, director of the studio, who's like making the link between the artistic director and the teams. And depending on the studio, either you present, like the designer present their ideas directly to the artistic director, or you have the head of design or the studio director who take the ideas presented, depending on how the artistic director wants and the size of the company, because you're not going like 10 people on him and like, okay, so I have this idea.
Yeah, no, it's thanks for clarifying that. It's always like sometimes a mystery what happened in the studio, understand how everything works. And what would you say like are the advice or insights that you will give somebody to start in a studio for the first time and kind of want to develop themselves there? Because you say you had interns and you have few experience in different studios. What would you say are the key elements for success?
I would say like it's like what I've said before. Like you should like propose something, like trust your ideas. Like of course you're gonna learn more and more like how to have trust in your ideas, but like not being like too proud of yourself, like this idea it's
arrogant.
Yeah, like I invented the wheel, you know, but just like, if you have an idea, be proud of it. When you present something to somebody, is it like the senior designer, the artistic director, or somebody else, you should be convinced by this idea. You should be happy about this idea, and you should be proud about this idea. Like, never present something being like half, half boiled, like, I don't know, I don't really believe in. Like, how do you want to convince somebody? This is the most like, and I know it's hard because most education is made like, you don't know, the grown up know, and he will teach you and learn from him. So again, like, as you were saying also, like, you have your own experience, maybe less in some field, maybe more in other, but like, have some, one of the most important things for me is like, be involved in what you do, be proud of what you present, and it should make you happy, so you can share this happiness and this joy with the person you're presenting it, and this inspiration. Like, I'm inspired and I can do more if you want, you know, and if you don't like this idea, okay, I will go back and then I will find more ideas.
Yeah, it's amazing trying to find a thin line between being confident enough but not arrogant.
Yeah.
And at the same time have that, as you said, as you were talking earlier about that spirit, that joy, having fun, delivering ideas. And even if the idea doesn't work, or it's not that it's not a bad idea per se, it just doesn't work in the specific context for the specific collection. But that idea will lead to another one. You explore a little bit more. So in a way, it's what I advise also often. It's about the learning curve. What have you learned from designing that first idea? What have you learned from the next one? And it's not about, it's not personal. It's not like you did something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
It's about right. Yeah. And so, also always observe. Like, this is also super important. Like, you should always observe, because like for every, like, when I was working for Balenciaga, it was very different from when I was working at Loewe, but both I learned like so many like different things and different way of working. And then you need to present something that is in line with, because I say you do things for yourself, but you're working for this brand. So you should give things that are aligned with this, with their idea of their brand and the direction, the artistic direction they want to give to the brand.
Yeah.
So, and this is very interesting for you because it brings you out of your comfort zone all the time, and you're like, okay, I never thought about this field or this area of this or this direction. So you should always be very curious and observe a lot. What is the house or what is the fashion house you're working for? What is the person background? You know, for me, it's very important, like this observation, to know how to talk. It's like, again, it's like I'm talking about vocabulary, and like, it's, for me, it's all about the language. It's not the verbal language, it's the aesthetic language and the intuition that you have about this person, you know. And this is something that is very important for a designer also, to understand that this intuition is something super precious. And if you're not trained this intuition, then you always be a bit like shy. And there is, I mean, yeah, you can be shy and you can be reserved, but there is no right or wrong.
Yeah, I like what you say about the language, and it's almost being fluent in different language aesthetic, where you can, you know, experiment and try new ideas, and always go back to your own intuition and say, okay, how can I press an idea in this specific aesthetic language? Maybe I'm not comfortable yet, but I'm confident I'm going to get better. So let's present those ideas and observe, learn, and see how far I can go. And it is really interesting. I like that.
And yeah, another thing that it's also like, sorry, but that it's also very important is like having like big respect for the craft people you're working with, because they are really important, because like if they stop tomorrow, everything stops. It will not happen. Like, don't be scared. It will never happen. But this is also one, like when you say like the key to success, it's not about like your own personal success. It's how to live in this life. And I think one of the very important things is like the empathy, the generosity, and the respect you have. And most of the time, as from what I've seen, again, like we talk a lot in fashion about the respect we have for craft. but it's really not considered so well, in my opinion. They are like the workers in the factories. So, yeah, we respect them. It's like a nice blah blah talk, but voila. So I think it's like they have so much knowledge, and we as designers, this is the most fun part for us, is like sharing those moments in the factories, in Italy, in France, everywhere, with the people who are like making your ideas materialize your ideas. And it's so important to share with them. And for me, it was always important to explain to them, why am I doing stuff? Because they often repeat like, oh, you're a designer, you know. And I'm like, you know what? Like, we are sharing. Like, I have the idea, I share it with you. Then I have some like pattern maker ideas, but I'm less experienced in that field. And it's again, like, I have less experience in the pattern cutting. You have more. Then you become a bit a designer. I become a bit a pattern cutter. Like, we share. And then this is our idea together. So this is also another very important thing aside from the studio.
Yeah. You make me go back to what your dad was saying. Remember, when you see a product, where it comes from, who have done it, what are the work behind it. So always respect the craft behind anything that you do, especially in our industry. And I want to kind of underline if I go a little bit to Loewe, and after that I want to go to your brand, because I want to be respectful of your time. So if you have to kind of summarize Loewe experience and what have you learned over there, well, how was it, and what are the key learnings?
So it was very interesting because I worked like for a completely different, like for me it was important to work from something completely different from Balenciaga, where I was like mostly like, let's say like finding inspiration in garbage and like in weird areas that have nothing to do with fashion, which you always do in every fashion house. But in Balenciaga it was very specific, and you could do like, you can mix so many things from everyday life. And I was going to Loewe, where it's really like, it's beautiful, and the craft, and like rope and Japan and So it was very complimentary to me, like how I am, because I realized I really need both of them. Like after a time, if it's just like one direction, I get bored. So I really need this, like the beauty mixed with the garbage, for example, like to simplify it. So there I met also again like an amazing group of people and of designers who came from different areas, which were like completely different from the one at Balenciaga, completely different in terms of aesthetic, let's say, but then as humans, like not so much, like they also like to design and have fun and voila. Then I also could observe like from the interior, how is it to work for LVMH compared to Kering. So it was again like very interesting in that aspect to see like how two big machines are working. I learned a different way of designing, like something more efficient. At that time at Balenciaga, it was also the beginning of them now. So I assume now it changed a lot. So it was really the beginning where he really wanted to change things and Now I don't know how it is so much. Loewe, it's much more installed. But what I observed is from both of them, they are very aware of the commercial aspect of the brand. And they really want the people to be able to wear their designs, which is something common they have, and which is very important. And I mean, I don't know if I don't think they despise the mass market, because from where they are coming, like both as artistic director, they don't come from the court, like they don't come from a castle. So they are very much like in relation with the real life, as much as they can from where they are now. But they were at some point in relationship with the real life and the metro and but
yeah.
So no, I learned a different way of creating, and I learned a different expertise, especially in the craft aspect. Because Loewe, it's really a craft company specialized in leather. Was like an amazing atelier where people are working for more than 10 years there. So it was a very amazing experience in terms of leather good quality and excellence.
And that's why you chose to go there? What was the criteria kind of to?
Yeah, so I knew at that time that I mean at the time I was like already for like 5 years at Balenciaga, and I was like feeling that doing those maquettes and like being like this crazy, like in my little workshop at Balenciaga doing maquettes, and I was like starting to turn a bit in circles, and I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And when I had this opportunity, I was like, okay, this is nice, because it's like, for me, it was like the opposite to Balenciaga. And I was like, if I want to continue in this category of like leather goods, I shouldn't have just one experience in something cool and dirty. I wasn't sure, but I was like, I feel like I need to know. I mean, I was touching already like the leather, like the bags of Loewe, and I was like, wow, that's nice. That's leather. The colors are nice. Which like, oh, no, you cannot say something is nice or something is beautiful, like, no, But when I arrived there, I was really like, okay, we can say this is beautiful. This is nice, like we can also just appreciate things and not always be cynical and ironic. And
yeah.
So, so for me, it was important also for myself still like to develop more skills in leather good, like proper leather goods. Since I'm coming from where I started quite like late and by instinct in leather goods, so I don't have this background of doing like starting from I learned a lot also because I was doing a lot of maquettes, so I deconstructed a lot of bags. I cut, I deconstruct, so I observed a lot by doing and by like playing with those maquettes. So those maquettes were very important in that learning of how a bag is made, how a bag is constructed.
And so you brought that after to say, I know how it's made. Now I'm going to apply maybe other type of materials and play with it and to make maybe something beautiful in some way.
This is another thing that now, I mean, from my experience in the studio, like most of designers, they spend a lot of time like in front of their computer, and we tend to do this more and more and to have the feeling that on Pinterest you can find everything, which I find like horrible. But at Balenciaga, it was also a time when we were going a lot out. We are going a lot to do research. We're going a lot to museums, to exhibitions, just to be inspired and to be out of the studio, because the studio is one thing, but it's not. So I also find like for my assistants, like I always try to bring them out. It's sometimes hard because everything goes so fast and you have little time to be inspired. But I always find it so important to bring them out of their seat, because for me, when you start, you shouldn't be just doing like Photoshop and Illustrator. Like this is something you will have to do, but do it fast, because there is so many other things that are fun.
Yeah. So I like it the way you say it. It's go fast, not for the just fast, just for the sake of going fast. It's go fast in order to have the time to get the inspiration and nourish yourself. So be productive and efficient in order to have the time to nourish yourself as well. Because if not, you get eaten alive by the machine and the fast pace. And so today, how all of those experiences have nourished your personal project, and can you tell us a little bit more about what is that new project you are working on?
So I started in 2001 my brand, which is called AXEP, and it's this brand of accessories for garments. So it's like basically it's like small details. It's like jewelry. It's made out of silver and vermeil. And also émail grand feu, which is called like grand feu enamel. And I went like, for me it was very important to start my own project and to design with my own values and to direct design where I find it important. So it's again like having ideas, sharing it with people and having fun. And like fusing those two elements that were important in my life, ready to wear and accessories, combining them together and offering like a new idea, like something that doesn't exist, because this is, as I say, like for Hussein Chalayan or like for other designers that offer like something new to the world, like something innovative. This is very important to me. So I would say that this like training, this harsh training in fashion and this like where you have to start a new collection one after the other. Like at the beginning, it was very hard. I was like, no, I cannot like have a new idea after this collection. But then since we have creative minds, then you're like, oh no, I'm fed up. Then you see an image and you're like, well, okay, I can start now. Ah, it's inspired. Okay, I have the ideas, you know. So then it goes like naturally in your mind. So I learned, I mean, it helps me like focus, like, and I'll say like, I give this advice to my assistant, like you should focus and you should go fast in this area that is less interesting for you. So you have more time to do what interests you. And then for my brand, I always have to apply it, and I'm becoming like, I mean, I have many characters in my mind, but for this special aspect of having your own brand is very good, because I have to be the artistic director, I have to be the designer, I have to be the marketing, I don't know, and to be like, okay, now you can be free and find ideas, and now we go fast, we don't have time, we have to be. So it's really gave me this training of like, bam, bam, you continue, you have new ideas, and you have to end up things. Because this is one thing when you create for yourself, you're like, it can go forever. I'm not sure. I didn't finish. So this really gave me this, like the speed that sometimes is necessary to just finish something and to have a prototype in order to be able to modify it later. Don't think too much, like just do. Then you receive a first prototype and you modify it and you change, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. You always have the time to have new ideas after. And the other thing that I should like stop myself sometimes, it's like, of course, working for those luxury houses, you really have the opportunity to try so many things and to develop so many prototypes. So now for myself, I'm like, yeah, I want to launch like 10 ideas, and then I will select 2. And then I ask for the price point, and I'm like, okay, I need to focus on 2 ideas. Okay. Yeah, so this is the really like the luxury aspect, that you can launch so many things and you can try. You always have people to give you a response and to be like, okay, we're gonna make it, we're gonna try. We don't have the budget, but still. So this is so I really learned to like concentrate and focus.
Yeah, that's amazing the way you explain everything that you have learned and how you become, the CEO and the art director when you have all those ideas, and then you have to become the designer or the assistant designer, and there you have to really focus on the one task and deliver and finish on time. Then you go back to becoming the head designer when you observe things and reshape and re-challenge. And it's almost like they always say in entrepreneurship, it's like you're wearing several hats. So it feels that it's really clear the different hats you have and how you use all the skills acquired along the way.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that inspiration kind of, because I remember when you introduced me the brand, one of the things that struck me the most was almost like it was a dialogue between the accessory and the garment, and of course the person wearing both. It was a new way to dialogue between all of those pieces in a really innovative way, to use your word. And where did that inspiration come from, and where you see the kind of the project going with that kind of main idea?
So the idea was like for me, like in the really beginning, it was to talk about the garment in a diverted way, because for me, like as I was saying, like the garment was important when I started for the fabric aspect, the relationship to the body, the relationship to the movement. Like wearing garments, it means like you get dressed and you get undressed, or there is also a sensual and a sexy part of it. And I was like asking myself how I can like still talk about the garment without having the weight of like sizes, big production, or big production. Like you have different sizes, you have to find the fabric, and again with this idea, like have fun and keep it light, and also the idea of trying to offer something that is like reduced in this world where everything is like so big and so noisy. I wanted like, even if it's amazing, the noise, and I really like the noise, and I talk a lot and I'm like super like excited and enthusiastic, I really value the quietness and the like discretion. No, you don't say it. Like,
more intimate too, yeah.
Intimate, yeah. So, and the other thing is like me wanted to have fun and seeing like how much like people like you can interact with each other, but sometimes you don't dare. So I wanted to create something that catch attention in a discreet way, makes the wearer discreetly remarkable. So you like, and playing with yourself in the first place. So when you get dressed, then my accessories, you can place them a bit like wherever you want, like depending on the accessory. So I have like piercing for garments. I have pins for garments. I have tags, like the label tags in paper, but that are made like in silver, and you can attach it to your pant loop, to your buttonhole, to a hole in your t-shirt. So it's also like making the best out of an accident of your life. And by placing it in weird ways, you're aware of what you're doing with your garments. You give value to an old garment that you might be bored of. And then you also might surprise somebody, because when I wear, I also have like a button, for example, that I place on my shirt, for example, and then I see people like looking at it in the street, like, what is this? Like, what is this shining there? Or like my partner, he has like one of the jewelry, and people in the street, they come to him and they're like, I'm sorry, you forgot your tag on your jacket when you bought it. And I find it so funny, and I'm the happier. I'm like, yes, it's worked. Like, I'm so happy. Because it's this interaction between people, you know, when you have like, I don't know, like a salad or food in your teeth, people won't say it because they are like, I don't know, he might take it bad, or I don't know. But with the tag and all, with these elements that you have on you, people come to you, and I love, because it's kind of like an empathic reaction. Because people say today the world goes bad and everybody's mean and the society is harsh and blah, blah, blah. It's true in certain aspects, but when people are coming to you to say, I'm sorry you forgot this, is an attention that this person is having for you. So I like to, with those little details in this like big noise that we are in now, to create something that it's more discreet, but still catch attention and make you be remarkable in a discreet way. You don't have to shout for attention, but you can play with yourself and then play with the others.
Amazing. It's when I was hearing you, I was remembering everything that you have said so far, and that element of playfulness. It's really at the center of everything. And I love what we talk about, the craftsmanship, the material, something good quality, we made with specific craft, at the same time discreet, but that bring like a dialogue between the person that wears it, the garment, and also the person that look at the piece, and how those interactions create a new dialogue, maybe more empathy, as you were saying, in a world that it's so being disconnected. It's really interesting how you use that piece, that accessories for garment, as a way to connect people in something really like authentic and simple. So it is really unique, everything you have been able to create with that brand, and it's quite unique.
Yeah, and it's also the idea of creating around the garment. So using, again, like as like what I was saying about my parents, about Romania, about my experiences, like transforming what is there, like working around the garment. Like now I'm working on the new collection, and I find new functions or ways to transform your own garment. Again, in this idea, like, yes, I'm the designer and I have time to think about designing. For somebody who's like a baker and he doesn't have time, or he's not interested in designing, but then he can also create and change his garment and his own outfit by adding certain things. And then to a certain extent, like you can also to also share this idea that we are sharing together and we are always transforming something that existing. So now I'm working on a new collection, inventing new function based on the actual function of the garment, and always also working with the atelier, like in Paris, because everything is made in France, because the craft is here, and because for me it's very important to share again with those artisans and to learn from their craftsmanship, and to work to show through the pieces also that something very simple needs sometimes a lot of work. And when I go in the atelier, I'm always impressed to see those like hands of women or men working on those like little small things. And I'm like, wow, this took so much time. And it's all their attention on this little element. And I really that's why I wanted to work with silver and with precious metals and precious materials, not for the sake of saying it's precious because somebody else decided. It's just because to say that it's the work is important. And I think on the new collection, I'm like thinking about working with materials that are not considered precious in the first place. But for me, they become precious because it's the work of the person and the intention of the person who made it happen.
Yeah, we go back to that idea of seeing something in another point of view and see what is the beauty behind and how you can create something new from that new perspective.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, Ana Xenia, where people can find more about your brand? What is the website or maybe the socials?
I have a website which is www.accep.co. AXEP is my initial, so it's AXEP. I also have Instagram, and I recently have an Instagram shop. I'm very proud that I opened my shop on Instagram. So now I should say that. And I will like work on the wholesale aspect of but for the moment it's sold online, and on Instagram.
Perfect. Again, thank you a lot for your time, for all those amazing stories and all that journey that you took us all along this podcast. And I'm really happy about like where the brand is going and super interesting. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much to you. It was very nice to talk to you. And
did you feel that fire and creative spirit? I personally very much enjoyed this conversation. It reminded me why I love being close with creatives. Every time I learn so much from their point of views and their capacity to shape the world around them. So what are the key learnings from this conversation? 1. If you are a designer starting their career, remember to always be at the service of the brand's vision and be a supportive element for the senior designers. 2. Trust yourself and your vision. Speak up and experiment. Continue to nourish your spirit and get inspiration from the world around you. However, stay humble and do not try to revolutionize everything. Learn the processes and look for incremental improvements. 3. Don't let your passion for fashion consume you. Learn how to balance your life. Find ways to re-energize your body and spirit in order to sustain a high level of performance at your job. Learn how to take a step back and gain clarity on your professional objectives. I'm sure there is even more insight that we can take from this conversation with Ana Xenia. Again, I invite you to discover her work on her website www.accep.co, AXEP.co, and look at her Instagram at accep.axep.that. If you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in. I know how much your time is valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. This is the most efficient way to help us grow and entice people to listen to the show. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. In the next episode, I will receive Yalin Xu. She's from China and works at Remova as a creative content coordinator. So if you want to know more about marketing and content creation, stay tuned for our next episode. Until next time, I wish you a wonderful day.